So you remember that. We said last time in the frontal lobe, we said in the limbic system, and we said in the prefrontal cortex. We said the prefrontal cortex ilala ngaphambili la khona umuntu akaresina khona, and then the frontal lobe just here ila khona umuntu akenza khona ama decisions. We said the relationship between the frontal lobe and the prefrontal cortex is that the frontal lobe no may decide, but the reasoning behind the decision is done by prefrontal cortex. We made an example ukuthi uma uthuka umuntu senkonzweni, even if yakwazi ukumshaya, but the environment, the reasoning behind it prefrontal cortex, yes, we are able to umshaya. But now mangrizina situation environment esikuyona nje manje ayivumi ukuthi ushaya umuntu. So I suggest ukuthi lento ofuna ukuyenza, you must decide not to do it. And ngamamazwi prefrontal cortex, it gives reasoning ukuze wena decide prefrontal lobe. And then we said limbic system ila khona okuhlala khona information and knowledge. Okay, ila khona kuhlala khona my emotions ihlone kaningi na. But we said masikhuluma uma umuntu esebenzisa kakhulu limbic system, sichazele ukuthi iyasiza kanjani, iphinde isiza kanjani, iyasiza ekuthenini if ubona into eyingozi, and then because it has to do with my emotions and fear and motivation. Uma kukhona into eyingozi ayi-threat empilweni yakho, this thing triggers ukuthi ukwazi ukubaleka. But then again, my emotions, if asebenza ngendlela wrong, if they govern you, awukwazi to decide according to what you've reasoned, but you decide according to how you feel. So it's a I understand that, therefore, you never understand about this division. So limbic system layer, satisfying our two na ngichaze namhlanje. But ekuthenini sithi say no to yourself. Ngifisa si focus entweni eyodwa esukwazi ukuthi sihambe nayo with this background. Sazi ukuthi frontal lobe we decide prefrontal cortex we resina, and then the limbic system store informations, and it's where your emotions are there. Now sakhuluma futhi ukuthi uJesu into akayifuna kakhulu ukuthi simazi yena. That is why John 17:3 uthi this is life eternal, that they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ you have sent. Not that they may have information about you, that they may know you. You don't hear about him like a celebrity, but you must have a personal encounter with him. That is knowledge. Now, the knowledge of him must carry us through. He writes for lack of knowledge, not lack of information. Knowledge is critical to Christianity. Knowledge is having a personal encounter with that thing. Now, in this way, is to define what is temptation, because I think it is important. There's a lot of things as in Makhaya. Number one, believes in Deni. Number two is though we are going to end with the school, nutrition and everything and lifestyle, but I think it's important for us to actually firstly identify, say define any temptation. With the statement to say no to yourself or say no to self. Now, if you go to the book of James, this is where I want us to start today. The book of James, chapter 1, verse 4, so 13, 14. Yeah, 13 and 14. Ithi ke mangifunda okay mhlawumbe ngiqala 12 ukuze siyenze kahle lento. Ithi ke u12, blessed is a man who perseveres under trial, for once he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Now, uma sidefine ukuthi yini temptation, before we start that, iBhayibheli lisinikeza assurance ukuthi loyo othi uma kuma trials noma uma elingwa ebese bekezele bambelela, loyo muntu uzonikezwa umqhele ukuphila. Ngamamazwi, he will get the crown of life. So that's a blessing right there. Before we define, you must know ukuthi temptation is obakhona for wonke umuntu, but umuntu ozobusiswa yilo ozokwazi ukuthi abekezele. You understand? So kusho ukuthi we are not immune to it, but it kufunakala ukuthina ukuthi when it comes ama trials efika ukuthi wena ubekezele. My favorite verse, Matthew 24 verse 13, it he who enjoys to the end shall be safe. Loyo okhuthazelayo kuze kube sekupheleni uyena uyakusindiswa. Akusho ukuthi asiphili nje kuphela sibe free from inkinga nama-trials. COVID-19 ikhona, imindeni yethu, amalungu emindeni yethu ayalala ngapha nangapha. Unibona ku-TV kwenze into eziningi. Those are trials, siyahlukumezeka la enhlizweni. But lithi iBhayibheli yilo okhuthazelayo. Akusiyena ongeke zebe nazo inkinga ozosindiswa. Yilo obekezela ezinkingeni. Kusho ukuthi iBhayibheli alisho ukuthi when you become Christians you are free from troubles. No. But into enzakala when we become Christians, uNkulunkulu usinikeza that ability, amandla, noma engasenzele yena, but amandla khona ngaphansi kuthini ukuthi uma sibingwa noma masima persecution noma masima trials, but isikwazi ukuthi sidlule kulezo zinto lezo. I always say iproblem yethu when we face the problems, asibuki ukuthi uNkulunkulu yiphi indlela akasinikeze yona escape. So now today ngifisa sibheke sizume in singena kuyona ukuthi masikhuluma nge-temptation sikhuluma ngani, masikhuluma ngezilingo and trials sikhuluma ngani, specifically to an individual level. Bese ke u13, let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, and he himself does not tempt anyone. Verse 14, but each one is tempted when he is carried away and enticed by his own lust. Now, uma siqala ke lithi iBhayibheli uma ulingwa, understanding ukuthi sizolingwa sonke. Semshadweni awushadile, usekhaya, uyingane, umdala, sizolingwa. uNkulunkulu ke uma ulingwa ungasho ukuthi ulingwa uNkulunkulu. Ngoba uNkulunkulu number 1 akalingwa ngokubi. Futhi uNkulunkulu akamlingi umuntu. So zuthule izinto. uNkulunkulu akalingwa ngokubi, futhi uNkulunkulu akamlingi umuntu. Bese idifana ukuthi uma umuntu elingwa usuke huhwa inkanuko zakhe. Alright. Okusho ukuthi uma kuthiwa uhuhwa inkanuko zakhe, ukusho ukuthi into esuka ngaphakathi akusiyonto esuka ngaphandle. Now then we need to define ukuthi kanti yini temptation. Ukuthi manje iBhayibheli uNkulunkulu akalingi umuntu futhi nakalingwa. Ichaza ukuthini? Because iBhayibheli lithi uJesu after sebhabhadisiwe wahamba wavuka emanzini and then he went to the wilderness to be tempted. And then the Holy Spirit led him as if umoya ongcwele tempt. Now the Bible uNkulunkulu akalingi umuntu, but then again yena akelingwe ngokubi. But umuntu mayelingwa usuke huhwa inkanuko zakhe. Alright? Now asibuyele emuva ke sidefine kahle lento ukuze sikwazi ukuhamba kahle ndawonye. Now the question is, what is temptation? I-limbic system into emeasureisha kakhulu kuyona ukuthi iyona egovernisha noma ke econtroller ama-emotions omuntu. We said it stores information. You interpret that information, and information osuke istorishile, it's got emotional attachment to it. Uma kukhona umuntu who broke your heart kuqala, that memory has got emotional attachment. Every time uzwa igama lakhe, every time uzwa ukuthi ukhona uyadlula whatever nje esondelene naye, then you become sad. So that information is more to do with emotional attachment. But as a whole, i-limbic system yona esebenzisa your nature, your human nature. Okuyiyona human nature yakho ukuthi ngifuna ukuthi angikufuna ukuthi, I'm craving for this, I don't crave for this thing. Is to control the limbic system. Now, i-limbic system ayikwazi ukuresina ukuthi lento ifunayo i-right is safe for wena noma ayikho safe for wena. All it wants ukuthi it needs to be satisfied. That is where also most of your hormones, most of your neurotransmitters angena khona. So masikhuluma dopamine, ama-hormones enza ukuthi uthanda umuntu, ama-hormones enza ukuthi ubonde nomuntu, ama-hormones, ama-stress hormones, all those things that has to do with you being satisfied, you fearing something, you being stressed, and all those things. Asuke kwi-limbic system. Now, i-problem yakhona ngithe awakwazi ukuresina. Now, i-frontal lobe into enzayo ukuthi when you want something, you crave for something, then i-frontal lobe we then have to decide ukuthi ngiyasukuma ngiyoyithatha noma ngiyithathe. But before yenze njalo, i-prefrontal cortex must reason if this thing is safe noma imali nginayo yini, ibudget yami tight noma ayikho tight namhlanje kuleli sonto noma kule nyanga ukuze siyithole leyo nto. So it reasons, but i-limbic system ithi mina ngifuna ukuthi ngizoku-afford noma ngi-afford umsebenzi we-prefrontal cortex, umsebenzi we-frontal lobe. Now uma sisekhaya emndenini, uma umama wekhaya ezala ingane imizalo ingqondo iyashesha ukudevelopeka even isencane, because ingqondo yona that takes care of all other limbs emzimbeni. So ingane emisuka mhlambe at the age of 3 kuyale phezulu iziyofika kube ne-teenage, imisencane i-frontal lobe yayo ne-prefrontal cortex ayisebenzi ngendlela, ayisuke ngabe fully developed ngisho njalo. I-frontal lobe iba fully developed at the age of 30. But uma usakhula useyingane ukhuphuka, all you use is a limbic system. That is why ingane izofuna ice cream, ukuthi kumakhaza, ukuthi imali khona noma ayikho, ukuthi iyakhwehlela cha, ingane ifuna ice cream noma ifuna idanone, because all they use is a limbic system. I-frontal lobe yabo iba develop as they grow up, after kuba yi-teenager masekuyale, but at the age of 30 iba fully developed. Now ingane misencane idepende kumzali who has i-frontal lobe yakhe fully developed ukuze i-assista ekuthenini lento efuna ingayitholi ngoba izolimaza ezempilo yayo umazali. So in other words, we have a parent here, we have a child here. Umzali una 35 noma una 40, we expect ukuthi i-frontal lobe yakhe is fully developed. Okusho ukuthi even though she wants some things empilweni yakhe, she must decide not to do them because number one, they are detrimental to impilo yakhe. Number two, i-budget ayikho kahle, or number three, mhlambe environment ayimvumeli. So uma izala ingane, we must understand ukuthi uNkulunkulu mekunikeza ingane ezandleni zakho, leyo ngane izoba ne-frontal lobe noma izobe se-developed at the age of 18, 19, 20 noma 15, but izoba fully developed at the age of 30. Ukuthi imise na 5, 6, 7, idepende kwi-frontal lobe yakho to make decision for yena. Ngoba into abayifunayo has more to do with what they feel inside, not what they've thought about. That is why it's dangerous. Umzali yonke ingane ethi mifuna into ekhaya iyayithola. That child will number one, again example, when ukhuliswa ngokuthi yonke into oyifunayo uyayithola. In other words, your limbic system knows ukuthi when I want this thing, if I feel like this thing, I get it at home. No one says no. So now, ukhula nalento ukuthi limbic system yakho will always be satisfied when you want some things. Uma kwenza ukhona into that goes against limbic system yakho, then you begin to hate that thing. Because ekhaya yonke into obifuna ubuyithola. Now, ngesikhathi i-prefrontal cortex noma i-frontal lobe developer ifika phezulu, then impi iba nkulu lapho because limbic system yakho vele ifundisiwe ukuthi everything it wants it gets. And then if you find a person uthothi una 35 noma una 40 is not able to fight and say no against themselves because when they grew up, their limbic system had never been said no to. Wo akekho umuntu owabe namandla ukuthi eyingane ethi cha lokhu ngizokuthola. Wayithi mayekhala ethola yonke into, that's i-limbic system yakhe ya develop lento ukuthi mina engikufuna ngiyakuthola. Akakwazi ukuthola lethi izinto empilweni. Uma kukhona into engenzakali, even when you pray, abantu who when they pray kungenzeki they give up early, it is because uma bekhuliswa ukuthi everything you pray for or you want you get. So uma usuhlangana noNkulunkulu othi uma ukhulela something engakunike ngalo sikhathi, chances are you'll question him. Number two, chances are you'll even hate this God who doesn't answer my prayers because mina ngazi ukuthi into engifuna ngiyithola. Why? Because uNkulunkulu ngatake interest ngomzali wakho okwakufanele abone when to say yes and when to say no. Wangakwenza lokho because ufuna ukuthi umthande, and then wakulimaza because uthi uma usukhula yonke into ethi no kuwena ayikwazi ukwenzeka, then you hate it. And then you have a person who has got limbic system yakhe enamandla ukudlula yonke into. I spoke about uJesu when before he died ukuthi how he said no to himself when he wanted to give up looking at this thing ezenzeka ngakusasa ukuthi inzima kangakanani, but he said no to himself because as he grew up umzali wakhe udade wathi uma wakhe wenza sure ukuthi umfundisa izinto eziright okwangafanele akwenze, wayemfundisa lokho akwenziwa lokho kuyenziwa ukuze naye azi ukuthi when I grow up I must learn to say no to my limbic system. Now uma ke ukhula, there are decisions owenza una 15, the decisions owenza una 25, kuna decisions owenza una 40. Uma wathatha wabeka kanje ngeke azafana. Kunendlela obuka ngayo impilo when you're over 25. Kunendlela obuka ngayo impilo bese unale uma una 30. Uzibuza ukuthi, but how did I act? Kunomuntu ophuma ngewindi manje ekhaya ehambe yobona isoka lakhe noma ubani. Ukuthi kunomgozi ngaphandle lingambulala imdubulo noma kuzokungenzeka ingozi maye ephathini, awunankinga wena, we are pushed by the passion, limbic system yakhe ngifuna ukuyohlala nabangani bami. Uma usuna 45 uyibuza, mina ngeke ngaphuma ngewindi ngahamba ngawubona isoka lami noma ngawubona abangani bami, because we are reasoning about it now. This thing is fully developed. We are born to know that there's in that is why you live under guidance yabazali at a certain age, because you depend on their developed frontal lobes and prefrontal cortex to make decisions for you. Ukuze uthi mungena kwesakhe stage ekuthini ukwazi ukudecide, at least you're coming from a certain point. Awusezokusebenza kakhulu in trying to fight against yourself. Now, ziwu-2 izinto kungenzeka ukuthi umuntu usehambe uzofika la khona usemdala una 25, but akakwazi namanje ukuthi no. Yabona nje yena uma efuna into isimo sangavuma uzonza okusemandleni sayithola, or else bazozondwa abantu abasondele naye because leda ayifundiswanga. So it's a call kubazali emndenini especially ukuthi ayikho lento ukuthi hayi akasifuni ukuthi ame spinach yaza usho ingane ena 4 noma ena 5. Akakudla ukuthi akakuthanda ukuthi akumbulala, cha akakuthandi nje. So la ekhaya ngoba akakuthandi kufanele kulalelwe yena ngoba akakuthandi. Akusho ukuthi asithi uhlumezane ingane, but sithi understand izinto eziningi ukuthi ingane idepende kwi-frontal lobe yakho ukuze ikwazi ukwenza ama-decisions a-right masikhulile. Musa ungayivumeli i-limbic system yakhe ukuthi ithole i-ascendancy ukuze uma isindala ikwazi ukuthi i-develope ibe umuntu o-right. Now, I want to speak about senses again. Ebese ngikwazi ukuthi ngene kwi-presentation ke namhlanje, then we see God. I-responsibility yomuntu ngomuntu nomKristu nomKristu yokuthi athi no to himself ikhona kuwonke umuntu. Uma ungene ebuKristwini, automatically uba sempini noSathane okuyena ofuna ukuthi ngelilanga ubesethunini. Ayisethi ngelilanga uSathane une weakness akadevelopa kuwena. Low weakness leyo wenzela ukuthi noma kuthiwa ziyafika zonke ezinye izinto but akufake ngayithunini. Now, we said last time from information, the last step that we spoke about was knowledge. When you know something, then it helps you when you want to make decisions. So in knowledge yako, you only going to make decision. So from information, interpretation until it was a few knowledge. So knowledge helps you from a point to go to make decision. Now, when you know something, it's equal in knowledge yako. You got about information, why interpret, why find knowledge, why understand, and then you see by knowledge. Any example, uma uqaba nomuntu enkonzweni noma ku business meeting noma ngingasho enkonzweni noma ngaphandle you are driver, and then umuntu ekudrive sekabi, and then bese umshanga enkulu inhlamba umthuki. Now ngathi umthuka uhamba nabazalwane bese sebazalwane hayibo inhlamba engaka uyithathaphi. Now iziwu-2 izinto ofanele siyibuze kulo muntu. Number 1, uyithathaphi inhlamba ngoba umKristu, okusho ukuthi inhlamba wayizwa somewhere. It's either why wayizwa ngoba inhlamba into ekhulunywa noma ngayifunda ngaphansi wayizwa. So wasebenzisa the sense of hearing, wayifaka engqondweni yakhe. But ukuze ayikhiphe ngelinye ilanga ngesikhathi esirelevant kwafanele interpret ukuze understand ichaza ukuthini. Mhlawumbe khona wayemthuka naye, but akakwazi ukuthoka omunye umuntu ngaphandle ukuthi kufanele understand ukuthi inhlamba isetshenziswa nini makwenze njani. So kufanele ukuthi ke ima story shekile ayitholele indawo engqondweni la izohlala khona. Izolindela isikhathi esi right ukuthi when someone does something to you, he triggers my emotions akho, and then because you are angry and you are sad now, kufanele kube khona into ezophuma as a self defense, but kuphuma lenhlamba, but ayiphumi into ongayi-understand ukuthi iphuma makunjani. Awukwazi uthi useklasini ubhala i-maths bese nokhipha amanzi esizulu. When you write in mathematics, you must go to a shelf le maths ukhiphe i-answer edingakalayo. So ngesikhathi umuntu ekusukela, you know exactly what to do because konto istory shile related to that. And then most mase kusukela umuntu masivele uyamthuka umuntu ifuhle ngenkulu inhlamba ubanga leyo umuntu. Now the question is, you started inhlamba. Okay, you stored it. Number 2, how did you know ukuthi ufuna ukusebenzisa manje? It is because you interpreted it and you understand it. And when you understand it, you know when to use it and when not to use it. Now, at that particular time, your frontal lobe was not able to suppress it because your limbic system was so powerful in such that you were angry, and then you were able to say, you give it all out. So that is how the relationship must then work. Now, we said from your knowledge, you know something now. Now, when you know something, then it will influence your motives. Then there's a motivation, which, okay, now that I know this one, okay, because we said we don't act. So from knowledge, you get to emotive, the second step. From motive is actions. So my actions are so a motive behind. But your motive layer is to influence your knowledge on your. You don't act and do not ayazi. Yonke into or decision is because we are what I found before, what I used before, what I tested before, what I booked before. So from knowledge, it's motives. From motives, actions. That is why to chase that means because what counts are my motives before action. So if you have actions very easy when you've already done this, you should have an opportunity. So action figure after motive. But Tina, abantu, we look at it, must we action, it's okay. But he's been having an emotive for the longest time. Motive ngenze ukuthi khonta kayenzile lo nkonzweni mhlawumbe umethithile noma mhlawumbe uchithile nomuntu wesifazane nina inkinga yani discuss ukuthi ngoba usuchithile, you discussing actions, but before actions there are motives, but before emotive there is knowledge. Akakwazi ukuya entweni akazothola ngiyona, uyazi wasikahle. So it's knowledge, is motive and actions. Emva actions, so as you do lento yenzayo actions, it develop into repetition. Repetition, most it develop a habit. So it's knowledge, it's motives, it's actions, repetition, and then it habits. Habit it's one step away from it becoming a temptation. Example umuntu obhema ugwayi. Take example again, ngihamba nabangani bami and then bese kuhlala phansi bese kuyaphuza, angazi ngaphuza utshwala before, but I've heard utshwala ukuthi wenzani and nginayo information yayo and ngi-interpret ngabona abantu ngahlala nabo. Okay, you know utshwala kahle muphuzile mubu active ama-advert akwenza ukuthi kube sophisticated nje, abantu abaphuza baba ngathi amabhuda yonke into iba right. So that knowledge of utshwala, okay, kubonisa okay muphuzile even kunama levels akhona. Ama-cognac, ama-whiskey, ini. So that develops a motive to you. So mhlawumbe nami mangashaya ama-estif noma nje 2-3 classes ngizoba right now. Even now TV, when you look at abantu when they have got money baphuza ama-project, so that develop a motive. And then as you try and ushaye isipha yodwa uthola ukuthi akubabi kakhulu, and then we are doing it akubabi kakhulu, iyaphuzeka lento. I wonder why bebethe inkozwana singaphuza, and iyaphuzeka lento khona ijini and khona ikhona bani utshwala bakhona, and then ngesikhathi uyishaya lento lena uyabona ukuthi no, uyabona ngathi usuphuzile ukuthi uqala ukuthi ingqondo iyahlakazeka, uyakwazi abantu benza izinto manje ubongazi ukuzenza, and then usathi angiphinde futhi, then that repetition, and then ukuyiphinde uyiphinde, and then igcina i-habit yakho, igcina ukuthi umuntu 20 rand uthi hamba ubambe court bungayenzi lento leliqala, but usuyenza manje because you've tried it. And then now we understand it, and now and then as to repeat it, it's a habit, and then it becomes hard not to do it. That is where I say, from habit moving forward, it becomes harder not to do it than doing it. Doing it is easier than not doing it. Must be habit, but my knowledge, it's easy for you not to do it because our guys will ends. But once you feel we habit, not doing it is harder than doing it. Now, temptation comes from there. Into that you knew about, that you developed a motive, that you tried doing it, and while you were doing it, you enjoyed it, and then you repeated it. Repeatedly, you did it, and then it developed into being a habit. I-habit usungena kwi-trap, usuzothi umuhleli uyikhumbule. Ordinarily ungaqali ungayikhumbuli, but now because uyayazi isiqala manje ube habit. And then ke uma usuyasindiswa usuka bisi habit usuyaphuza utshwala uphuze for 10 years. Waqala awuzala ngiphuza, wayifundisa wena utshwala, and then wasikwazi ukufunda wakuthanda. Now bese kufika isikhathi lakho ube umKristu bese uyasindiswa. Mase usindisiwe ke bese ke ngenhlanhla noma ngomusa kaNkulunkulu bese uyabiyeka utshwala bese ube umKristu. Right? Then bese ke kufika isikhathi la khona uba stressed. Mase stressed, you need something that is going to console you. Uphuka inhliziyo yakho means ayihambi kahle, or uyaphuka umshado wakho, and there's nothing engakwazi ukukulapha. And then you think about something that you actually were doing before. Yeah, you're going to jabul, which is alcohol. Now, at that level, when someone comes to you and say, for you, because utshwala uyabazi, for you, because utshwala waphuma kanzima kubona, and situation okuyona ikwenza ube vulnerable utshwala, it becomes a temptation. But umuntu ongazange aphuza utshwala, ongafuna ukubona, i-offer katshwala kuyena is temptation. So you define what is a temptation by what you teach yourself. Ukuze ukwazi ukuthi igcine ibe habit. I don't know if you understand that now. Angenza an example wesikwazi uyithola kahle lento. Umuntu ohamba nabangani bakhe ebese bemfundisa ugwayi. Emephatha ugwayi ubheme ewuthi bese vele yakhohlela ecishefe. Bese ethi angifuni ukubona lento. I-picture yakhe yokugcina ngogwayi ukuthi ugwayi awumnandi futhi ugwayi wacisha ngibulala. So ayikho yinhle. Bese kukhona another person othi mayizama ugwayi ewuzame ewuza ukuthi uyashaya noma ekhohlela oqala but ewuzama kwesibili ugcine uthi ethi mawufaka emlonyeni noma ufaka ungamkhohlelisi ugcine eba comfortable ukubhema because ayikho into wrong osayenzile kuyena eyenza ukuthi abe ne negative attitude towards ugwayi. Ngathi ubhema kakhulu ugcine sewufundile ugcine seqaleka isi habit, and then after that temptation usiyaqaleka ke manje, but engakawazi ugwayi engakawubhemi ubungakabi temptation. But we temptation why? Because usedlele ku repetition was of we habit. Then from a habit akasakwazi ukuyeka because usuyena. You have stored it in your limbic system. It has got emotional attachment in such a way that whoever decides in your frontal lobe to say no to it, then is attacking yourself directly because this is who you are, that is what you want. You have taught yourself this. So, neji Bible uma ulingwa ungathuli ngoNkulunkulu. Because uNkulunkulu akalingwa ngonkuphi, number 1. Number 2, because uNkulunkulu akalingi umuntu. But uma ulingwa usukuhuhwa ingane zakho. Uthi uNkulunkulu amamanzi, uma ulingwa usuku is an opportunity to fulfill that which you have stored in your limbic system and that which you enjoy, from knowledge to repetition to temptation. It is something you have invested more. If it's something you've invested, efforts are called 2 years. Then it becomes a temptation. So in other words, temptation, you define it. Temptation yako may not be a temptation yam. Indlela esisebenzise ngayo ingqondo zethu, indlela esivumele ngayo everything ukuthi isistory engqondweni yethu, that makes us to be tempted ngendlela esithembiselwa ngayo. Umuntu example, ngumuntu wesilisa. Kuqhamuka umuntu wesilisa bese ethi kimi ufuna ukuthandana nami. For me that's not a temptation because umuntu wesilisa, umuntu wesilisa nje yabo. But umuntu wesifazane, ngangathanda umuntu wesifazane before, ngiyama umuntu wesifazane. Ukuthi uyathandana naye umuntu wesifazane ngiyazi. So uma qhamuka umuntu wesifazane, that is my temptation because yinto engiyona, yinto engiyaziyo. Umuntu oqhamuka kumina notshwala, ngingazi ngiphuza utshwala, it's not my temptation. But uma uqhamuka notshwala kumuntu okade ephuza utshwala, then it becomes a temptation. So in other words, when someone comes ngaphandle ek-offers something wena usuke ekunikeza lento esengqondweni yakho ekufanele iresonate nayo. But what breaks this is your ability to decide to say no lento esuke introduced. Now I said kunento kuthiwa ama neural pathways ukuthi when you learn about something more uyazi into isuke ngeke ishalo fly ngqondweni, you create that. Ngesikhathi ngifunda igama elodwa lesingisi there are new pathways ama neurons are created for that shelf uma ngilokhu ngiyifunda kakhulu, those pathways increase agcine semakhulu in such a way ukuthi mase ngiyifunda kakhulu into repetition, it's not easy for me to forget it because the neural pathways alokhe ahamba ngendlela eyodwa. So mase ufunda into entsha futhi engasafani naleyo, you develop a new route of that new information. And then as you read it and you study it and interpret it, that route becomes thick and thick and thick until you have neural pathways amaningi. So that is why your brain cells, they enlarge and strengthens as you give yourself more information and knowledge. So in other words, when you get to a point of temptation, ingoba these neural pathways that develop whenever you give your mind something new, they have developed in such a way because they are thick. So to reverse that will cost ukuthi usebenze an extraordinary work. uNkulunkulu kwengeneke lapho ke ekuthenini into masuyazi engqondweni isukuthi strong ngendlela ukuthi ngisho ungavuka ekseni ubuzwe ngayo uzokwazi ukuphendula ngayo because the neural pathways to that shelf are stronger. It doesn't need more effort for you to do it, but needs more effort for you not to do it. So saying no, uma nginikezwe iglass katshwala, I'm not saying no to the guy who's giving me. I'm saying no to myself because I am the one who wants it, because I am the one who understands it and who likes it. So that's the first point. Saying no to yourself. It's saying no to what is stored here that is introduced because something similar to it is being introduced to you. Uma ngiyathanda an example. Uma ngithanda ubhontshisi njalo every time. Ebese ngiyawazi ukuthi ubhontshisi testa kanjani, ngiyawazi ukuthi unuka kanjani, ngiyawazi ukuthi ubuka kanjani, because ekhaba upheka ngendlela ethize. And then I go to Johannesburg, and then uma ngifika eJohannesburg, and then mhlawumbe noma ngifika Cape Town or I go to Eastern Cape, ebese ngidlula ngendlela with the sense of smell, ebese ngizwa iteni kwesuka bhontshisi, ebese ngithi hey uba lo pheka ubhontshisi angakawuboni, but because ubhontshisi ismell sawo sastorisheka la because bebekhaba bewupheka ngaze ngawuthanda. In other words, uma ngizwa anything similar to ubhontshisi, I can easily go to my shelf and ngibuza ukuthi lento enuka kanjena yini, ikhona into enjalo le, bese ingqondo yakhipha ukuthi no, into enuka kanje ubhontshisi, and ubhontshisi by the way uyawuthanda wena. And then after that, and then I say uba upheka ubhontshisi, bese bethi hayi upheka kwamakhelwane, and then mase umzimba wami ukhipha ama saliva and everything because now I must be ready to eat this thing because ngiyayithanda. And then because of the environment, ubhontshisi awuphekiwe la upheka kwamakhelwane, I can't go ebhodini la kwamakhelwane bese ngivula ibhodi, bese ithi frontal lobe no, decide not to, just dlula ubhontshisi akusiwo wakho. So in other words, whatever is stored in your brain, when you meet something similar to it, it triggers that which is in your brain, and then you have to decide not to do it or to do it. It depends, therefore, ukuthi frontal lobe yakho powerful kangakanani to suppress what you feel inside. Now, asikhulume nge-frontal lobe ke manje, and then we go into ama-compositions akhona, because ingqondo yakho ikhanda ama-brain cells, and ama-brain cells akhanda kakhulu ama-fats. For it to function ngendlela kuyiyona, especially the frontal lobe, the neurons, neurotransmitters akuyiyona connect ingqondo yakho yonke. So those must be very healthy. Those must be up to date. Whenever there's an information for you to decide not to do it and to do it, you are able to do that if they're healthy. So ama neurotransmitters nakhona anendlela asurvive ngayo, and they're very sensitive. Now, there's a story. This guy was a very responsible man, loved his family. Emphakathini, he was very humble and he was very respectful. He was working in the mines. I read this paper 5 years ago. Was working on the mines, and then babe qhumisa amatshe and this thing, baqhumisa amatshe bese bethola ama-diamond and gold and all those things. So this other day when he was working, and then something happened emsebenzini, and because ukuqhuma lento lena, meqhuma kwaphuma into engathi insimbi engaka, yangena la. It is a true story, medical, you find it. Yangena la, yangayishaya ingqondo, but yazophuma la ngaphezulu. Yangayilimaza ingqondo la ngemuva, your entire brain stem and everything. But yashaya kakhulu la yazophuma la. In fact, yabhola imbobo nje la ngaphambili. There are people who get shot ekhanda by bengafi. It depends ukuthi inhlambi ishaye ini. And then uma iphuma ingqondo, and then he went to the hospital, and everyone thought umuntu ufile. And surprisingly, this guy recovered. Kancane recovered. And then uma ebuye ekhaya, and then they okay, ba check, okay, uyazazi igama lakhe, uyakwazi ukuhamba. Okay, so i-movement ayi-affectekanga because sibona ukuthi yini engakwazi ukuyenza ukuze sibone ukuthi ku-affecteke iphi iphathi yengqondo. Okay, uyakwazi ukukhuluma and everything. So bayibuza ukuthi akwazi ukuthi ayikho into wrong. Mayibuye ekhaya and then waqala waphila. And then they were watching him ukuthi ngabe yini eshintshayo kuyena. Uma ehlafuna kanjani. Uma ebiza ingane zakhe uyakwazi ukukhumbula amagama. And then they discovered something very fascinating about yena mayiqhubeka ukuthi yaqala i-personality yakhe yashintsha. Useqala uba unolaka, inhliziyo encane, irritable, usensitive nje, akakwazi ukuthi akabezeleli into nje, inhliziyo encane, akasahleli nokuhlonipha emphakathini, i-personality yakhe has just changed completely. Ube umuntu responsible usiyaqala manje sephuza utshwala, usiyaqala manje akasakwazi ukuthi alethe imali ekhaya. And then therefore deduced ukuthi njengoba kade limala, akalimalanga parts of the limbic system, but he was injured in the part of the frontal lobe where he needs to make decisions. Now, part of your personality is stem from how you conduct yourself, either in public or in private. So this guy, because while he frontal lobe, he was not able to decide to make proper decisions that governed himself. But limbic system then gained ascendancy over himself. Even the personality changed. It's true, even the personality is defined by how emotionally we feel in most of the times. Because most of the time, he allows himself to do that. Why? Because I go through to over angry. But when every time you're angry, you show it off because you can't decide not to show it off because your frontal lobe is not strong enough to decide not to do that. Now, part of the things I'm going to talk about today is that then how do you strengthen your frontal lobe? What destroys your frontal lobe? Because your frontal lobe should be stronger than your limbic system. Whatever that comes from your limbic system, you're able to say no to it. Because should you say yes, yes, every time limbic system then morally you become degenerated because you need your frontal lobe to decide to do things. That is why I said because now your frontal lobe and your prefrontal cortex, everything you decide must be governed by this thing. Whatever is against it, you don't decide to do it. So when you work according to your emotions, then you're going to have a difficult time when those times come to decide not to do something because I right, even though you want it. So we don't do it just because we want to, but we do it because we've reasoned and we've seen it fit. That is why because you have reasoned you don't feel like waking up. But because your motivation, your reasoning, if you have then month end, you're not going to get paid. And then and then you decide with your frontal lobe, and then you wake up. You wake up. So, uma uti no, uti no eglaleni, uti no to yourself, agreeing with overpower. So saying no is to say no to that which you enjoy doing. But before figure out, you must be able to do it. You must be able to, you must be a pro in doing it. You must like it. I was what you know into an time. If you into a guy comes Sabatini, and then he asks you out, and then Masutu and I know I'm phone, and then everyone says, and then when you look at it, 12 favorite type. So therefore, that was not a temptation because type. But the temptation begins where the guy you wants or crash again comes to you and say, hey man, sister, I see still come for drinks. Then that's the temptation because number one, you like the guy. Number two, you have pictured yourself. And when that happens, it is a real temptation because it resonates with what is inside. So when you say no to him, you're not saying no to him, you are saying no to that which is inside. So that is a temptation. So how do you then make sure your frontal lobe is strong? Now your frontal lobe, there are neurotransmitters ahambisa information to and from the brain. And then when that happens, there are so many things. So again, ama-cells omuntu akhiwe protein. So this protein, you find it in different sources. There's certain protein also based on plant-based protein. There's certain protein also based on animal-based protein. Now, this protein broken down to amino acids. Those amino acids are taken into the blood by absorption, and then build those cells. Now, ingqondo yakho ikhandwe ama cells, but mostly fat. So whatever you eat, fatty, will either build your brain or will destroy your brain. For example, coconut oil builds your brain cells. Whenever you need to make decisions, whenever you need to use your brain, you are able to use it accordingly because you have enough cells, you have enough fat to build your brain cells. So what we eat, I'm saying now, what you eat, because decision-making process takes a lot of energy in your brain and it taxes your brain cells. So you need to make sure, especially when you're stressed, if you think a lot, you're using so much of the nutrients in your brain that you need to replace it by eating well. Now, if you eat those fats, your omega-3 fats, malin seeds, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, those 4 seeds are good in omega-3 and omega-6. Your omega-3s are good to build your brain cells. So in other words, for you to be able to utilize this software, this hardware, to decide not to decide, you need to make sure that your brain is healthy. So eating that for yourself is going to assist you, even though as depression and stress, it also assists in those people who are depressed, because if you are stressed and depressed, then your brain shrinks. But you need to rebuild those cells by eating that which is conducive. And also, that destroys your brain cells. Amyloid fibrils. Amyloid fibrils is found in animals, especially in ngulube and Mnqobi. When it's broken down, these peptides and particles, these cells, when they go into your brain has got your blood-brain barriers. Because they're too small. So this amyloid, when it gets into your brain, it is a smallest unit of the animal-based protein. When it gets into your brain, it makes you brain cells, especially when it comes to remembering things. You forget a lot, and say 40, 50, 60, why? Because this amyloid, when it gets into your brain, it then injures that part when it has that had to do with information and knowledge. And then when you eat mostly of your animal fats, especially animal fats, ivorsi umulfrayile amafutha khona uma eseshaya umoya ayashwaqa. And those fats, even though they are fat, but when they come into your bloodstream and they go again into your cells, afika solidify there at room temperature. My solidify ends with cells angakwazi function because as strong as ashwaqile. So consuming that a lot makes your brain to move sluggishly and slower, and even your blood ayikwazi supply into your brain because you've ingested fats that are not conducive for your brain. So fats that are good are plant-based fats. So you can eat your supplements like fish oil, omega-3 oil, or linseed oil as a supplement. It helps your brain and your neurotransmitters because these neurotransmitters keep a lot of hormones, your mood, to boost your mood. Keep hormones, for example, exercise, to cope for the day. When you are stressed, when they give you antidepressant, secrete lama hormones lawa egazini lakho azokwenza ukuthi ukwazi counter against. Abanye bethu, when you feel depressed, your limbic system, which is mostly these hormones, awakwazi to decide against them. So you need certain hormones to boost your frontal lobes to decide to do something. So eating well assists therefore your brain to say whenever you need to utilize it accordingly as well as Wednesday. Number 2, your digestive tract. When you eat food, it goes into your stomach. Your brain then says, we need to get more blood into your stomach because there's food that needs to be digested. Now, all other parts of your body are starved of this blood because the blood is in the stomach to digest the food, to give acid, to give digestive enzymes and all those things. So that is a process that lasts for 2 hours. So the food must be in your stomach for 2 hours undisturbed. And then after that, for 2 hours, and then your food goes out into the small intestine, and then from there, it is then absorbed by the blood into your brain, into your lungs, into your cells, and all those things. Now, if you're a person who eats every time during the day, with like 10 or 8, your blood is always in the stomach. That means your brain is starved of the blood because you need more blood in your stomach to digest food, to actually break down food. But why? Because your body needs, your stomach needs energy to digest the food. So that blood is here to supply not only enzymes, but to supply energy to the stomach so that you can break down food. So if udlanjalo, without having iskhathi in the middle where you drink water, you starve your brain and you keep it slow, why? Because there's not much blood in your brain because you're always digesting in your stomach as you go with the day. So now if wena awulali, you lala ngabo 1 or 2 after 12, you miss on the peak of this melatonin, then your brain cells are not repaired. So now into ofuna ukuyenzeke is to make sure ukuthi number 1, you sleep before 12 ukuze ukwazi ukuthola benefit melatonin. But again, make sure ukuthi awudli kakhulu before ulale because you need this neurotransmitter noma this hormone ukuthi repair your brain cells ebusuku ezulele. But ayikwazi ukurepair when there's something going on in the stomach. Udle kakhulu ebusuku and you're going to sleep. Uzophupha otikoloshe kunomuntu ophupha ngathi uyakinya uyacindezeleka akakwazi ukumemeza akakwazi ukwenza lutho because there's a disconnection between your neurotransmitters and your stomach. Your body is working but your brain is supposed to be sleeping, and then as you dream there's a disconnection because the mind coordinates everything, the movement, the talking, everything. But if something is sleeping while another thing is awake, then you have that situation about we are memeza but memeza. Why? Because there's a disconnection because you taught yourself there's cutting on that something is going on. So you need to again make sure your system is resting of benefit. So part of the things to strengthen your frontal lobe is to make sure you rest, is to make sure that you give your stomach rest, because most of the times who have got loss in memory and slow mood is because they always digesting food. There's no time for them in the middle with digesting, and then your brain goes into other organs. And pancreas because there's not much blood to supply nutrients there. Every blood is in the stomach to constantly supply enzymes, to constantly supply. So everything, there's a blood that's needed in there to digest food. The principle after a meal, 4 to 5 hours, drink water, and then eat everything in your meal, and then you'll have that problem. To develop it. And then again, everything in the blood, everything, the life of the animal is in the blood. The life of a human being is in the blood. The blood is very important. The food you eat is transported by the blood either to your brain or to your cells. So it's important again to understand what other supplements or what other food sources that you can do. The neurotransmitters amanye enza ukuthi ukwazi uthola ube semudini, ukwazi ukuthi ube excited, to be happy, ukwazi ukuthi ube able to make decisions on your brain. So these neurotransmitters are very important. Kumbula ngikhuluma about ama-neurons, which want to connect information from your brain to your limbic system and from your body to your mind and everything. So, but then these neurotransmitters are sebenza, neurons are sebenza ama-neurotransmitters. Usho ukuthi ama-neurons wanna keep ama-hormones asikhuluma ngawo. Melatonin no serotonin, because move workseni, serotonin iyaphuma, mawutulala, melatonin iyaphuma ukuze ukwazi ukurepair. So those hormones are secreted by the neurons. So that is why uma ngikhuluma about the fat and all those things, isuke zobuilda impilo yama-neurons ukuze ukwazi ukusecrete these hormones. Abanye abantu kuthiwa idla banana ekuseni so that you can get the mood. So banana again is good because it gives you an L-tryptophan. Tryptophan is also serotonin. It's good. It relaxes you. And it gives you an edge, an ability to face the day. So banana has that particular neurotransmitter. But again, exercising gives you a tryptophan. But you can also go at this come and buy your L-tryptophan capsules or supplements and use them exen, they will give you a serotonin that you need for the day. Ube radiant, ube free, to cope even the stress, to decide on the decision, because your neurons need your tryptophan for them to decide. Bese kuba khona le ke sibiza nge-phenylalanine, spelling sakho sithi PHENYLALANINE. So that makes dopamine. Sibiza nge-phenyl, uma sibiza ama capsules akhona, it makes it dopamine. I-dopamine ile engithe it's a bonding hormone for you to be able to like to love something, to bond in terms of love, in terms of abantu abaseyibhedlela uma belele, we say amalungu omndeni akufanele angene ezombona, because that makes it dopamine to be secreted, uzokwazi ukuthi have a feeling of bonding, and it also has got a positive influence in engqondweni yakho and making decisions and fighting against stress. So that is also fine in beetroot, almonds, and also soybean. But then you can buy supplement again, because ukwazi ukuthi uyisebenzisa together with the tryptophan, ukwazi ukuthola i-dopamine, uzothola serotonin yakho. Base bekhona i-choline. I-choline isibiza nge-NEC. I-choline is also acetate. Bayibiza nge-acetate choline. Okusho ukuthi it works with your blood cells, it works with your mucus in your body, because ukwazi ukuthi ikhiphe a combination of these hormones, especially abantu in this COVID-19 abanenkinga yokuthi abakwazi ukufight against the virus in terms of their body. They are giving this supplement, but it's found also in grains, all grains and soybeans and almonds again. So these are the nutrients that you must eat ukuze ukwazi ukuthi ingqondo yakho ibe right. But then again, if you told supplements, you can get them in food or you buy your soya beans and all your soy products. But you always call it soybeans because it works with your hormones. But then food and soy products, no matter it's good. And then when the show goes on your plate, when you eat, for them to be absorbed well, you must start with your salad. You should your green salad, protein, salad. So again, you don't start with your fruit. So start with your fruit, and then you land in salad, and then you eat your food. Because this salad and your fruit, it's got 100% enzymes because they are raw. So absorption will depend on the type of food you are eating. If it's raw, if it's not cooked, it's got 100% enzymes. The enzymes, they produce vitamins, they produce enzymes to digest and break down the food as well as good. Insulin is an enzyme. So if you want to heal yourself from that, you must make sure you eat a lot of greens, lots of vegetables. And lastly, constipation has been the leading cause of a weakened brain activity. We told to correct decision making because your intestine is full, is not moving. Principally, if you like a toilet not less than twice, or should toilet 2 times or 3 times or 4 times, because it decomposes, and then and then this poison because on the large intestine it's been this sort of filtration filtration drugs filtration poison osegazini fana umqomo bese uthi igazi elibomvu especially igazi lakho maybe I think 120 days igazi liyafa mase khandeka igazi lisha, and then igazi selifile ama dead blood cells, they go to the liver, and then ngathi wena ukudla kwakho ngathi sekuphuma kwi large intestine inyongo isiceleni kwesibindi, inyongo iyaphuma ingene ukuthela number 2 wakho ukuze imali sifaka ukudla kwakho, bese inyongo iphuma kanye nalo waste esesibindini itheleke ku number 2 wakho. That is how the isibindi cleans itself, itheleka la ku number 2 wakho. That's how number 2 wakho uthola ukuthi awunokamnandi unombala ngathi ubrawnyana. The mbala ngathi ubrawnyana is a waste that comes from the liver. So ngikhathi wena ungathoilethi, that waste, that material after we keeper is then taken by the body and it goes straight to your brain, and then your brain it injures you, and then you are not able to use this neurotransmitters. That is why I told you to toilet we can develop depression, stress, stress again. Abanye gcine benenkinga yesikhumba, abanye gcine selenkinga yokuthi akakwazi ukugrizina kahle unenkinga encane. Why? Because there's too much waste in the body, because ubedla izinto engenayo fiber, therefore akakwazi ukuya toilet. So you must clean yourself, you must eat well, you must make sure you eat your choline, your tryptophan, your phenylalanine, and you must make sure that you eat your veggies, your fruits, especially your oil, your coconut oil, you must use it. You can put it on your smoothies. You can put it on your food in general, in your porridge, and you cook with it. It helps you. And you can also buy supplements or omega-6, omega-3 fatty acid. You can also buy your linseed oil. You can also buy your fish oil. They are very good when it comes to your neurotransmitters, because remember, your frontal lobe connect with others using the neurotransmitters, and they must be very healthy. Information, even if you're studying, information fast, you need to have these oils in your brain so that it can work actively. And of course, your salts, your sodium, you can find that in your black salt. If you use your black salt, if you use your pink Himalayan salt, it's good also for these neurotransmitters which are active. So don't use the white one, but use the Himalayan, the pink one. It's good in terms of trace minerals that builds and gives strength to your neurotransmitters. Because my neurons are coming harm and if you need to make decisions, if you need to use a certain part of your brain, it is fast. I get delay because it delay, the cause of it. So therefore, your brain then contributes to the working of your mind. So if you say no to yourself, that is what's the physical aspect. Saying no to yourself has more to do with what you have stored in your brain and how you decide. But how you decide has more to do with the health of your brain and how you eat to provide your brain with the necessary nutrients. At the end of the day, when he judges us not according to what he sees or what he prefers, but according to what we have done with our health and with our brains. When he says, remember the Sabbath, he's challenging the brain because the brain is the one that remembers. If your brain is healthy, you are able to conceive into and able to reason accordingly. If your brain is healthy, then your mind will function accordingly. Saying no to yourself is something that is critical in nowadays. It's not only what you know, it is what you are inside that you must be able to change, but use these things and also prayer, basically. As you decide to fight against yourself, as you decide to say no to some choices that might injure your brain, to some choices that are not good for yourself, you must make sure that this part of your brain is strong and is healthy. But again, reading the Bible and praying is also going to contribute into that, because we must spiritualize it again, because it's something that is spiritual, it's something that is physical. So eating, praying, reading of the Bible. So it's not about what you know only, but it's about what you have decided to give yourself or to teach yourself, and what you basically are aware of, what you are good at, and that is where temptation is. I think for today, to cover my questions, and then as we move forward, but I think as you say no to yourself, and definitely in-affect kanjani ingqondo yakho, nokusebenza kwama-brain cells akho, nokusebenza kwama-neurotransmitters akho, nokusebenza kwama-neurons, basically, and how God then contributes in making sure that you are a human being or you're a Christian, ukuthi ukwazi ukwenza ama-decisions according to indlela yakhe. Thank you very much.
Siyabonga kakhulu Bhuti Mnqobi, kuningi kakhulu umuntu akufundile kule session. Esikhathini samanje ngizothi ngidedele imibuzo nama-comments ukuthi kulokho esesikufundile, abanemibuzo nje ngizothi ngiyibone ngesandla. Kwi-chat ayikho engisayibonile, so uma unombuzo nje socela ukuthi uphakamise isandla. But just a comment nje on my side, as ngilalele, I'm amazed at i-process eyenzeka la ekutheni umuntu enze i-decision, ukuthi uma wenza i-decision ucabanga ukuthi into ezenzekalelayo nje, but ukubona ukuthi there is so much that is involved, consciously and subconsciously, iveza nje how amazing uNkulunkulu indlela umzimba wethu ayidale ngayo, and iyaveza futhi nokubaluleka kwezinto esizifakayo nesizamukelayo, because as adesho ubhuti ukuthi izinto ezizaziyo nesiyifundile izona influence ukuthi imaphi ama-decisions esiwenzayo. So nje mina ngifundile kakhulu, siyabonga kakhulu. Bakhona abanemibuzo or i-comment?
Angathi akekho. Wazwile.
Kucacile nje. I think sonke nje sizokuthatha sikwetshise lokho esesithe sakufunda, and as ushilo nje ukuthi ukukhule kakhulu and uku-implement, I believe as well lokho esikufundile kuzokwazi ukuthi kusize kakhulu. Mhlampe nje sizothi sivale, kukhona i-quotation nje yomunye umbhali ethi God's biddings are God's enablings. So uNkulunkulu lokho akushilo ezweni lakhe nalokho athi asikwenze as aduchaza ukuthi uma decide against ourselves, it's not because we're deciding nje, but we're deciding against lokhu okuzosilimaza thina ngenxa ama-feelings ethu esicabanga ukuthi kusilungele but akusilungelanga kahle kahle. When we're deciding against kona, it is for our own benefit. Ingoba uNkulunkulu ufisa ukuthi sibe in good health, ufisa ukuthi senze ama-decisions are-right. So ngenxa yokuthi yena udecidile and ushilo ezweni lakho ukuthi we must deny ourselves, uthi lo mbhali-ke lokhu uNkulunkulu akushilo asibhide khona ukuthi sikwenze, he gives us the power ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi sikwenze. Ngazothi-ke uNkulunkulu angakwazi ukuthi asisize as si-decide ukwenza lokhu athe asikwenze, and decide ukuthi si-implemente these practical things ade sisifunda manje ukwazi ukuthi si-strengthenishe our frontal lobes ukuze sikwazi ukuthi senze ama-decisions are-right.
Yes.
Okay.
Just point this value. Which I think when you speak about character building, so that is the core of that. When you build a character, you are teaching yourself whatever it is that you wish to do, and then your mind becomes stronger and stronger. If you make a resolution or a decision, something, and then you don't do it, you are weakening your frontal lobe. Next time when you make decisions, you're not doing it because anything can just sway you away from it. One of the things that I always believe is one of the things that strengthens our frontal lobe. When you are fasting, you are basically denying yourself of that which you want, which is food. So if you can say no to food and say no to appetite, you are denying yourself. So it's self-denial. So it's one of the things when we go to Jesus, this kind of I pull me with prayer and fasting. And prayer coupled with fasting will strengthen your frontal lobe and strengthen your character. Because we decide otherwise, but we cannot leave behind. But at the same time, indlela esisiconducta ngayo enkonzweni indlela nje ukufasta nje kukodwa befuna uzala ukuthi ukufasta kukodwa strengthen your frontal lobe ngendlela emangasayo, because ngesikhathi uthi ufuna ukudla uyinqabele ngathi ufuna ukudla, there's a first point, there's a first thing uNkulunkulu asinikeze yona to be able to see ukuthi are you strong enough to say no to yourself or no. It's easy to say no to anything else ngaphandle, but it's difficult to say no to yourself, especially into osukuyizwa ngaphakathi. So that is what uNkulunkulu asinikeze. We do it in content, but asinaki ngalelo suthi sicabanga we are just starving ourselves. But we are then strengthening our frontal lobe when you do that. When you deny yourself something good, even when you deny yourself of that which you want to enjoy, but not enjoy, you're strengthening your frontal lobe. But if you give up and let go, then any example, abantu abagijima marathon, uma uzwa ngathi uyakhathala, and then you feel like no, angijiki, musaqala. Ngabona ngathi ngikhathi ufaka more effort to gijima, your frontal lobe is strengthened and is empowered. Then kusho ukuthi you can finish now 20 kilometers, 100 kilometers, whatever. But if the process of you must put more effort. You put more effort, you are giving power to your frontal lobe. We are give up and then we are going a step back. The work you have done is so every temptation conquered gives power to the next temptation to come, which was going on. But every temptation yielded to, it takes away power which was going over next time. So my man, then they build the character. It's step by step. You must make sure that you are conscious. You have gained power over this thing to move forward. Then the devil must work for another thing. But so giving up or giving way is weakening your frontal lobe. But saying no and putting more effort in moving forward, you are giving power to it. At the time of temptation, at the time where everything is turning upside down, upside, when you have taught your frontal lobe to be stronger than your limbic system. I think if fasting is one example, it was against ourselves.
Okay, siyabonga kakhulu. Sizovala nje, angisiboni esinye isandla esivelile. Sizovala, ngizocela ukuthi usivalele ngomthandazo. Bhuti Mnqobi, sicela sivalele ngomthandazo.
Alright, sithandaza. Baba wethu usekhaya ezulwini, siyabonga Nkosi yamakhosi ngelesini namhlanje ebekwi-second session yakuqala. Sizwile Nkosi yamakhosi ukuthi kusekwenzakalani kuthina when we face temptations. Basically ukuthi kusekuyini temptation. Esicela-ke Nkosi yamakhosi ukuthi ngesikhathi kwenzeka lezi zinto sibe conscious, sibe aware ngokusiza umoya ongcwele ukuthi what are we doing. Bese isikhathi sikhumbula sekudlulile ukuthi bekungafanele sikwenze. Cela manje asuyekhaya ezulwini masingena emahoreni akhangcwele sabatha. Ziningi ilingo ikakhulukazi masemakhaya ezingenza ukuthi sigcine sikhohlwe isabatha lakho. Teach us ukuthi sikhumbule ukuthi we have a responsibility to say no to whatever the devil is trying to make us do. And again, we have a responsibility ukuthi whatever we are facing emhlabeni sikwazi ukusukuma sime ngoba sinikezile icapacity yokuthi sithi no. Nkosi yamakhosi ke izilingo ziyahlasela kwesikhathi we feel justified ekwenzeni izinto bengafanele sizenze because sibona ngazuthi we felt like sibona ukuthi si overpowered. But namhlanje usitshengisile ukuthi Nkosi yamakhosi yes ziningi izinto sineze zona ukuze sikwazi ukulwisana nalezi zinto lezi. We were example la emhlabeni, though you were hungry for 40 days. When the devil said you must turn these stones to be bread, you were able to say no because you understood the mission that you were called for. As Adventists, that we were called for a special mission. Still able to see the slegeled. To develop our characters age because it's the only thing that's a was to come and say character and obeying the salad. Then we are going to have a problem. Still help each and every one of us. When we practicalize this thing, sikwazi ukuthi senze ngendlela kuyena. Kwesinye isikhathi shaya kakhulu usathane uyashaya ngendlela eziningi imndenini yethu kuningi okwenzakalayo and sometimes we give up on you. But cela usisize ukuthi sibambelele kuwena at these times ukuze sikwazi ukungalahleka umbuso wezulu. Uma ubuya ke uzolanda thina sikwazi ukuba nayo ekhaya. Singasali noyedwa obe khona la nongekho Nkosi yamakhosi sikwazi ukuba sekhaya sikhona sidumise kuze kube phakade. Amen.
Amen. Siyabonga kakhulu bazalwane ekutheni sikwazi ukuthi